One thing I wanted to ask you about, which is your real feelings about boycotting of artists and records in South Africa.
Well, that was a hot potato on the Amnesty tour.
I bet it was.
As we were going to Zimbabwe and we're going to broadcast into South Africa. And we split amongst the artists, really, as to whether we felt our record should or shouldn't be released. Tracy Chapman, for instance, felt strongly that her record should be released. You know, she feels that art, music is part of a process of change, and therefore should be given access and be allowed to realize its potential in that area. That is really my starting point. However, those actually involved in the struggle there have requested that as artists we do support the boycott. And so my decision was to support the boycott out of respect for them and their struggle and their choice. If that's what they tell me they need and they want from me, then I'll oblige. But actually,
I mean, they miss out as well, don't they? Because then they don't get to see you either. Well, so it's a sacrifice on their part, isn't it?
In a sense, I mean, I'm not sure, you know, how much that would worry them, but going the other direction, I think, you know, there's some of the idiocy of the boycott, because some of the black South African artists were unable to come and play in England because of the boycott, and they were writing and putting their souls out and telling us about what was going on, you know, even through news blackouts and so on. And yet still they weren't getting a chance. My natural instinct is that all of the arts are and have always been part of a process of change. They are part of the ways of getting new information and new ways of thinking out to a larger audience. You know, it's not direct, instant changing the world, but it is slowly, you know, like rain and wind on a rock face, maybe. You know, you can slowly begin to shape it and change the way people look at things. Make sure that they have the information to make decisions for themselves. And so, in that way, you know, I would like to see art never, I mean, the arts, perhaps I should say, never being used in a boycott again, but I will support this one because I've been asked.
I'm going to be me as I am, and you can beat me or jail me or even kill me. But I'm not going to be what you want me to be. You can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. Once the flame begins to catch, the wind will blow me higher. Oh, Nico, Nico, because Nico. Oh, Nico, Nico, because Nico. Killing my joke, the man is dead, the man is dead. And the eyes of the world are watching now. Our movement seeks to avoid violence. Watching now. We are going to change South Africa. Watching now. When I was a student, trying to qualify for the job that people will let us have, I suddenly realized it wasn't just good jobs that were white. The only history we read was made by the white man, written by the white man. Televisions, cars, medicines, all invented by the white man, even football. Now, in a way like that, it's not hard to believe there's something inferior about being born black.
Oh, Peter, you've just released the first series of Real World albums, yeah? Can you tell me a bit about who they are? And,
Yeah.
And the covers are interesting.
Right. Well, the label itself is a combination of WOMAD and the studio myself. This one is actually Passion Sources, and it is the companion for the Passion album, which is the soundtrack album. And the idea here was that some of the music that had really turned me on when I was researching for the soundtrack, I really wanted to be heard in its natural habitat. So that was the idea, and we have some of the stuff that was recorded on location for the film, and also some of the things that the National Sound Archive introduced me to, Lucy Duran in particular. And so it's things which all provided inspiration of one sort or another for the Passion album.
So that's right.
That's
now
called Passion Sources. So this is, if you like, is the well, this is Orchestra Reveille, which had no recording done in the studio. It's actually a compilation of Orchestra Reveille from Cuba, who are actually coming over this year for WOMAD, but they're very exciting, and they've been making records a long time, and so this is, I think, some of their best tracks. Then, yes, this is Tabouleh's record. Tabouleh, I think, has made something like 150 records. I mean, it's many albums from Zaire.
This one?
This man, I think, is magnificent. He's Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. He, I think, is one of the finest singers in the world. He's a Qawwali singer, and it was the one where people that introduced me to him. He's now become a sort of a staunch WOMAD favorite. It's very soulful, religious music. I mean, I know some people have a lot of trouble with it at first, but I really recommend seeing him live and just listening a few times, because for me it was mesmerizing.
Right. I think we were saying earlier that it's 3 years since So.
Yeah. Well,
Did it change you much? Because it was a very big album with very big hit singles on it. And did it change you, do you think?
No, well, where I notice change is in opportunities. I mean, that's partly why I'm steaming through with this experience park idea, because, you know, I can make phone calls to people with a lot of power and money, and I can get beyond the secretary. So in that way, there's a window of opportunity which I wish to thrust my foot through. But I think in my career, you know, it's been sometimes quite successful and sometimes succeeding all the way into obscurity, and so I tend to have a little distance from it, and it's very exciting when it goes well. But then there's still some projects, as with this Passion album, which I don't think are going to be mass market, but I think have work that is every bit as important to me as some of the stuff which has worked.
Would you call this the new Peter Gabriel album? Probably wouldn't.
Well, in a way, I would.
We should just explain that this is the soundtrack album from Last Temptation of Christ.
It is. I also think it's an album in its own right, in that quite a lot of work was carried on after the film was released, and I think some of the music too wasn't included in the film, so it has a slightly different character. But that was definitely the origination, and you know, I'm very proud of my association with the film, because I felt that was a genuine attempt at a spiritual and religious film. And there were some very genuine people who were disturbed by it, but my feeling was that before I wanted to get involved with it, you know, I had a long talk with Scorsese and wanted to make sure that it was being done you know, for what I felt were the right reasons. And if you talk to him or get to know him at all, there's no question about his passion for the teachings of Christ. And he was really trying to open those teachings up in a way that will make it accessible for people, and I genuinely feel it's some of my best work in there.
What about the next proper, if you like, sorry, no, with all due respect to passion,
Yeah.
is it going to be another
the next
song album?
That's right. Yeah, there will be. I mean, I have some ideas now, and I'm starting work on that when I finished selling this one.
When will that be out? Next year, do you think?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think it'll probably take 12 to 18 months. So.
Great. Peter, thank you.
I'm having enough. I'm getting out to the city, the big city. I'll be a big noise with all the big boys. So much stuff I belong. And I will pray to a big God as I kneel in the big church. I'm on my way, I'm making it. Big time. I got to make it sure.